I came across an interview that Brian Becker gave where he smeared Jose Vega. And this was a couple years back, but Jose Vega is a great anti-imperialist activist. He's part of the Schiller Institute and the LaRouche movement, and we're not LaRouchists. We have different perspective at the Center for Political Innovation, but we love Jose. Jose has spoken at our events in the past. We admire Jose. And in the aftermath of Jose doing something really badass and confronting AOC, Brian Becker decided he had to smear Jose. So I wanted to respond to, that whole thing. First of all, this is what Jose did that was really awesome. This is Jose confronted AOC for supporting Nazis in Ukraine.
Woman, none of this matters unless there's a nuclear war, which you voted to send arms and weapons to Ukraine. Tulsi Gabbard, she's left the Democratic Party because they're a bunch of war hawks. Okay? You originally voted, you ran as an outsider, yet you've been voting to start this war in Ukraine. You're voting to start a thermonuclear war with Russia and China. Why are you playing with the lives of American citizens? You're playing with our lives.
There will be no neighbors if there's a nuclear bomb. You voted to mobilize and send money to Ukrainian Nazis. You're a coward. You're a progressive socialist. Where are you against the war mobilization? He's telling the right truth. You have done nothing. Tulsi Gabbard has shown guts where you've shown cowardice. I believed in you, and you became the very thing you sought to fight against. That's what you've become. You are the establishment, and you are the reason why everybody will end up in a nuclear war unless you choose to stand up right now and denounce the Democratic Party. Will you do that? Yes or no? Okay, simple. Are you going to stop nuclear war? Yes or no? There is no line, because this is bullshit. None of this matters if we're all dead. None of it. You know that. Then let's take it up right now, because this is the only thing that matters. This is the only thing that matters right now. We could be in a nuclear war at any minute, and you continue to fund it. That's what's going on. Why not right now? You're the liar here. Nobody has held you accountable. That's what's happening. And it is time for you to stand up and realize that what you've been saying has been lies. Let your conscience come through for once.
Yeah, that was great. That was great. And I think anyone who is an anti-war activist who doesn't want the USA sending huge amounts of money to Ukraine to prolong this war would be happy that Jose did that. That was absolutely awesome. It was great. Jose was awesome, and rightfully so. Those of us who oppose World War III were very happy with Jose, and Jose was praised widely for this. Well, you would think that Brian Becker, who is an anti-war activist his whole life, who says he doesn't want the USA to be involved in Ukraine. He's barely done anything to oppose it, and he spends more time organizing Stop Trump rallies and pandering to Stop Trump hysteria. But you'd think Brian Becker would say, good one. He would see this young man of color standing up to AOC, confronting her about nuclear war, and he'd say, good job. That's not what Brian Becker did. No. Brian Becker decided he had to get on a podcast and make sure that everybody knew that for some reason, this wasn't okay. This young man confronting AOC wasn't okay. And this is the clip. And we're going to go through this, right? Because he lies and distorts and is deceptive. Brian Becker is a lying sack of shit. He doesn't want to stop World War III. He even is quoted in the New York Times saying he doesn't actually care about if he stops the wars. He just cares about radicalizing people. But this is, you guys need to see this. This is Brian Becker responding to a heroic act by an anti-war activist. And he gets on a podcast, and this is how he responded to heroic activism by Jose.
I want to bring up the issue of Lyndon LaRouche, because Lyndon LaRouche
was Lyndon LaRouche there in the clip? I didn't see Lyndon LaRouche in that clip. Did you? Anyway, Jose, yes, he's part of the Schiller Institute.
The figure who's, he's dead now, but he was around a long time, had this like cult that, he started out left wing, became a right winger to the point where he was basically sending people out to beat communists, literally beat up communists. But a very marginal figure with like a marginal cult following, but they've suddenly like become, I don't know, they're in the public like space again because some of their people have been like protesting members of the squad for giving money to Ukraine. One of the ones that went viral was this video of AOC being protested by a LaRoucheite. And this is what they do, right? They like kind of, it's a marginal group. They cause these like spectacles to get everybody talking about them. And that's how they end up getting, platforms to go, spread their message. And the reason I raise this is because it has been getting a lot of attention, but also it is a part of this phenomenon you're talking about where.
Now, isn't that a good thing, right? If you oppose sending weapons to Ukraine, aren't you glad that somebody did this? I guess not, right? Because the person is in an organization that you don't like, even if they make a splash about a cause that you support, that's bad. And also, why haven't PSL members ever done this? I've never seen PSL confront AOC, ever. So, yeah, this is who's interviewing. This is Rania Kolick interviewing Brian Becker.
People are being pulled into this weird right-wing space that claims to be anti-war, but I don't actually think it is, especially when you have people like.
Looks pretty anti-war to me. When Jose was confronting Brian Becker. Let's get to Brian. This is just Rania, talking. She's just a talking head. She doesn't really have a real thought in her head ever. So let's get to Brian.
In this particular case, throwing out somebody like AOC should be more like Tulsi Gabbard, somebody who isn't
somebody who just exposed that Russiagate was a fraud, somebody who has arranged a situation where John Bolton might go to jail. I think Tulsi Gabbard's done far more to stop the war than you have, talking head Rania, but continue.
And if there was anything left wing, has pretty much like distanced herself from that at this point. But I wanted to get your reaction to this because you've been organizing quite some time. I'm sure you've periodically over the years come into contact with these people, the LaRoucheites, if you will. I don't know how much significant or important they are, but I guess I wanted to ask you about it more as like a trend. And what do you think is happening with this now? And what is this weird, bizarre, like, I don't even know what to call it. It's not a coalition, but it's this grouping of people who are like claiming to be
who are disrupting town halls and opposing World War III, while PSL has stopped Trump rallies.
Anti-war, but in claiming to be left, but actually aren't.
Right.
Claiming to be left, but actually aren't. Who cares if you're left? Why does that matter? Why does it matter if you're left or right? Like, how about what you stand for? How about your principles? There's all kinds of people that are left that I don't agree with. There's all kinds of people that are right that I don't agree with. I care about right and wrong, not left or right, whether you're on the red team or the blue team. But I guess that's what we need to be concerned about, is that Jose, I don't think Jose claims to be left, but regardless, that's what Rania thinks is important. Jose claimed to be left and he's not, which I don't think he did. But anyway, let's master Brian, the great brain, the guru of the Party for Socialism and Liberation, which is totally not a cult, unlike every other group they don't like. Here we go.
Well, I'm just a little thing about the LaRouche grouping. It was a tendency within SDS in the late 1960s. It was a weird sort of
weird, it doesn't sound like Kamala Harris. They're weird, that right there, right? First of all, if you're an American and you believe in socialism or communism, you're already weird. You do realize that. To 90% of Americans, being a socialist or a communist and involved in a socialist communist group is weird. So if your concern is being weird, Brian Becker is already weird. So is everyone in his organization. Like, oh, we can't be weird. I mean, I'm sorry, right? We're going to oppose the system that the United States runs. We're going to embrace communism, an ideology that the American government has taught us is pure evil. But we're not going to be weird. No one's going to think we're weird in the process. Right there.
Sort of split from Trotskyism. And then and when they were in part of the left, lived in Rochester, New York. My brother Richard and I were organizers in 1970, a long time ago. And we had meetings with them, and they were just a weird sort of marginal, bizarre left group, but we knew them. In 1971 or 72, they became they took this right-wing racist turn, and they started attacking meetings of the Communist Party, physical assaults. I mean, like where lots of people were injured, armed assaults on Communist Party, Socialist Workers Party, and most notably against the National Welfare Rights Organization, which was a black organization, predominantly 90% black organization. And the LaRoucheites would carry out physical assaults against the welfare rights meetings, which were mainly welfare recipients who were coming together, organizing for rights, for political and social and economic rights for welfare recipients in the U.S. And then through the whole 70s, they became, through their different front groups, they create lots of front groups. They became basically a pro-FBI voice.
Okay, so let's back up here. All right, before we get to the next part. Yeah, I guess Jose, this young black man, is racist. But first of all, Brian Becker is lying through his teeth right there, because he knows that communist groups being violent to other communist groups was routine, right? And if you have any questions about that, go and read my history of the new communist movement. There was a communist group called the Progressive Labor Party that beat up the Socialist Workers Party. I actually met an old man who was missing an eye because he was in the Socialist Workers Party, and somebody in the Progressive Labor Party knocked his eye out. There was a group called the Spartacist League, a Trotskyist group that would rough it up with other communist groups. There were communists who supported the African National Congress, ANC of Nelson Mandela, and they got violently attacked by communists who supported the Pan-African Congress, the China-backed group. Communist groups being violent to other communist groups happened all the fucking time in the 1970s. So he's making it sound like it's some scandalous thing, right? And I don't know what that has to do with Jose and why that makes Jose's intervention against AOC somehow not correct, right? I mean, this is, I've never heard of it. I mean, so he's talking about events in 1970 where a communist group, which the LaRouche group was back then, fought another communist group, which happened all the time. Somehow that makes it a bad thing that Jose confronted AOC. I mean, this is utterly despicable. Communist groups fought each other all the time. And this organization, this National Welfare Rights Organization, if you talk to the LaRouches, if you talk to them, their understanding is that they would go to these meetings and try to ask questions and get violently attacked. And the Communist Party attacked them on the street and fought them. And the FBI had infiltrated the Communist Party and was trying to manipulate those groups. Look, the Black Panthers got into a shootout with rival black organizations. This happened in the 70s. This is how the deep state operates. And for some reason, LaRouche is special because they got violent with other groups that were violent to them when all kinds of other communist groups did this. And Brian Becker knows this. And his organization that he was in at that time, the Workers' World Party, they got violent with other groups routinely. They fought with different communist groups. They got into street fights all the time. I've heard the stories from the old cadre. So right there, he's being dishonest. There's something special about the National Caucus of Labor Committees that they got into fistfights as if that didn't happen all the time. The Communist Party violently attacked the Workers' World Party. The Workers' World Party fought with the Communist Party and with the Socialist Workers' Party. So right there, he's distorting things. And what in the world does that have to do with Jose? Right? Because of fistfights that happened at welfare rights meetings in the 70s, a young black man who stood up against the march toward World War III is a racist, according to Brian Becker. This is absolutely despicable. But they
became
here we go.
Different front groups. They create lots of front groups. They became basically a pro-FBI voice. They started attacking the anti-nuclear movement in the late 1970s after 3 Mile Island. They were we, literally had to defend our meetings from physical assaults from the LaRouche people. So when people say it doesn't matter if they're saying something good and they're against the war, and it doesn't matter who they are, well, just think about that for a second. If Mussolini, who had been a socialist at one time before he became the leader of fascism in Italy, if people allied with Mussolini happen to have the same position that you do on some issue, do you think like, oh, that's fine?
Now, this is, first of all, there's a lot there. First of all, he says pro FBI. They were not a pro FBI organization. The FBI put Lyndon LaRouche in jail, right? Maybe go read the Wikipedia page and read about how they were charged and how Lyndon LaRouche was railroaded to federal prison by the FBI. Meanwhile, Donald Trump was targeted by the FBI. And at the same time, the FBI was claiming that Donald Trump was threatening their sovereignty, PSL was organizing rallies against Trump. So they were on the same side as the FBI. The FBI threw Lyndon LaRouche in jail. Meanwhile, the FBI and PSL were on the same side as part of the Stop Trump movement. So, this is pretty ridiculous. On top of that, the anti-nuclear movement, right? Do you know why the Soviet Union fell? One of the main ways the Soviet Union fell was because people like Bernie Sanders, people like the anti-nuclear movement were going over to the Soviet Union and coordinating with the Gorbachev wing of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union that brought down the Soviet Union. Nuclear power is not bad, right? Nuclear power is good. Who are the main funders of the anti-nuclear movement? Big oil. Big oil, because nuclear power threatens to put them out of business. The big oil companies that want degrowth and believe in Malthusianism and believe there are too many people in the world, and there's overpopulation, funded a movement to try and stop nuclear energy. And the movement that they created set up shop in the Soviet Union, infiltrated the Soviet Communist Party, and set the stage for Gorbachev and for fucking perestroika. So the fact that the LaRouche people might not get along with a movement that had a pretty bad effect and a pretty bad impact, that's not surprising to me at all. And he says, well, we had to defend our meetings from the LaRouche people. Yeah, probably. And you had to defend your meetings, at the All People's Congress, which Brian Becker was at in 1981. They had to defend their meetings from black nationalists who showed up with firearms, who supported the Pan-African Congress and opposed the African National Congress. And at the same time, they had to defend their meetings from the Spartacist League, a Trotskyist group that tried to disrupt Workers' World meetings. You're a liar, Brian. You're a fucking liar, right? Yeah, your group didn't get along with the LaRouche group. It also didn't get along with certain black nationalists. It also didn't get along with the Unification Church. It also didn't get along with the Spartacist League. It also didn't get along with Maoist groups. There's nothing special about this group Jose is in, that it was violent. Your organization, Workers' World Party, that I was a member of for many years, got into fistfights with all kinds of different political groups because you all want to be king of the protest cage. So don't give us that bullshit, Brian. Right? People who don't know any better might think, oh, the only group that's ever gotten into a fistfight with communist groups is the LaRouche people. That's a fucking lie, Brian. And you know it. You're a lying sack of shit.
The KKK takes a position, that's against.
Let's talk about this too. This is my favorite.
Well, just think about that for a second. If Mussolini, who had been a socialist at one time before he became the leader of fascism in Italy, if people allied with Mussolini happen to have the same position that you do on some issue, do you think like, oh, that's fine? Or if the KKK takes a position, that's against, sending money to Ukraine, do we say, oh, yeah, let's be with the KKK?
So, now just because, let's point this out, he's now calling a young African-American man who stood up to AOC, he's equating him with the Ku Klux Klan, right? That's what Brian's doing. The only reason I'm bringing that up is because the PSL people and Ronnie Akalik love to play that card. All white men are bad. So let's just keep this in mind. An old white dude is calling a young black man a KKK member, right? That's kind of against the rules in PSL, I think, but I guess he's above the rules. They only apply to people that he's trying to smear and drive out of his organization, right? They play that identity politics card. Sam Marcy used to do the same thing. It's pretty despicable, right? You know, if any other member of his group ever called a young black man a Ku Klux Klansman, they'd be expelled and publicly shamed in front of the group. But he's the big boss. He's the big, you know, straw boss who lives in a fancy mansion. He's allowed to do that, right? You know, he can call a young man of color KKK and get away with it. But also, what is he saying there, right? What has LaRouche ever done that puts them in the same category as the Ku Klux Klan, right? I mean, has LaRouche ever killed anybody? As LaRouche, I mean, are they advocating racial supremacy? Many of the most prominent leaders of that group are black. So because you say a group is like another group, no one's allowed to work with them, and we're not allowed to be happy about their anti-war work. I'm wondering how this works. So basically, if Brian thinks a group is like Mussolini or like the KKK, their anti-war activism is bad. I mean, this is I'm clear as to how this works. So basically, according to Brian, if he thinks that you are like another group, that makes your activism bad. So we better all check with Brian before we do any anti-war work, because if he thinks that the group we're in is like a group that's completely unrelated, I mean, this is completely nonsensical. Okay, good for you, Brian. You don't like the group he was in, but you're running down an important young activist because of the fact that he did the activism that your group didn't do.
It does matter. It matters a lot what the nature of the group is.
Yeah, well, what is the nature of the group? It's just what you say it is. I mean, they got in fistfights with communists as if no one else ever did that. I mean, you're full of shit.
And the LaRoucheites are a dangerous group. They go through different iterations. They rebrand themselves, but their tendency is very much to the right, very much to the far right. And as a consequence,
What does that mean? What does that even mean? Their tendency is to the far right. What does that even mean? I mean, this is, again, and who cares, right? If they're right wing, left wing, I mean, this is just silliness. Again, you can see that, right? That this is team sports to them. Left good, right bad. Not always, sometimes, but not always. Lately, it's the left that did Russiagate, folks. It's the left that sent the FBI to raid the homes of the Uhuru Three and drag them into federal court. It's the left that wants to impeach Trump because he's trying to make peace with Russia. Just because it's left doesn't make it good. But I guess in Brian's little tiny brain, it does.
Sometimes do things that people think, oh, that's good. They broke up AOC. They broke up AOC's meeting. Well, why?
They didn't break up AOC's meeting, actually. He got there and he asked a question. They did not stop AOC's meeting. They did not break up AOC's meeting. Like, where is he getting? He's just making shit up now. You know, I mean, you know, and then he broke up AOC's meeting, and then Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny came in and, you know, did a dance, and, you know, then some space aliens landed. Like, who broke up the meeting? No one broke up the meeting, Ryan. He should sue you for defamation. No one broke up any meetings. Someone got up and asked a pointed question to somebody who's sending weapons to Ukraine, which I've noticed the Party for Socialism and Liberation never did. And in fact, this is an important point. Until the LaRouche Organization and the Libertarian Party and the People's Party and the Center for Political Innovation called the Rage Against the War Machine rally, the Answer Coalition did nothing to oppose sending weapons to Ukraine. They didn't call a single rally to oppose the U.S. involvement in Ukraine until the Rage Against the War Machine rally happened. And then they were so embarrassed, a month later, they had to have their own little pathetic rally. So literally, they were doing the anti-war organizing that you won't do because you're sucking up to the Democrats so much. And we're supposed to not be okay with that because you got in a fist fight in the 70s. Not buying it, Brian. Not buying it.
Why did they do that? I mean, are they doing it because they're trying to move the country in a revolutionary direction and they want to overcome liberalism and create a mass socialist movement? That's not the LaRoucheites.
Well, that's not, I mean, I don't see you doing that, right? I mean, I don't think that's what they want to do either. I think they wanted to stop World War III, and they didn't want, you know, American tax money to be funding a Nazi government in Ukraine and getting us closer to a nuclear war with Russia. I don't think I don't think they're trying to make a mass socialist movement. But if that's what they should be doing, Brian, why don't you and PSL do it? Show me one instance where PSL stands up to fucking liberals, right? If you disagree with CNN, if you disagree with MSNBC, you're the same as Hitler. You're a Nazi. The FBI went and raided the Uhuru 3 and dragged them to jail just for being anti-war. Show me one instance where the Party for Socialism and Liberation functions as anything but the Democratic Party's woke cheering squad. Show me one instance of them protesting a Democrat.
Force. They're a politically reactionary force, and who they are does matter. And I think it's really weird and unfortunate for people to say, well, AOC has a bad position on the war, so let's support basically right-wingers who break up her meetings.
Again, what does right wing mean? Tell me about this right wing. It's my obligation to defend U.S. imperialism from. U.S. imperialism might be bad, but there's this other thing called the right wing that is even worse than U.S. imperialism. And so that's why, we should protect John Bolton, right? John Bolton's being arrested by Trump, who's right wing. This is the right wing. What is wrong with these people? He engages in an organization that does nothing but tail the Democrat Party. And I guess, to be a Democrat is 1,000 times better than being a Republican, even when the Republicans don't want World War III and want to protect our free speech and don't want to throw us in jail for wanting peace with Russia.
Just people should think about the consequences of that.
Yeah.
I think the LaRoucheites at different times reemerge as a factor. So I've known them literally now for 50 years as a tendency. And
do you think anything might have changed in 50 years? I was politically active during the Bush years. Things were totally different then. During the Bush years, to be right wing meant that you supported the wars, meant that you supported the Patriot Act, things have changed a lot in the 50 years of your life, Brian. I'm not trying to be ageist here, but you think anything has changed in 50 years? Anything? When I first got politically active in, 2004, 2005, the world was very, very different. And the political spectrum in the United States was very, very different. And you think anything might have changed? Do you think the role of different organizations, might have changed in the last 50 years? But it's like he's on autopilot. And that's how all of these boomer leftist, boomer communists are. They're on autopilot. Right wing bad, left wing good, right wing bad, left wing good, pander to liberals. Whatever liberals do, we say it louder. We say it louder. That's all they know how to do, right? They're completely brain damaged. And here, people that don't follow that script are actually opposing the war, and they're not. And they don't know what to do. It breaks their brains. They just have to engage in character assassination and call them Nazis.
It's very noteworthy that when they become stronger again, which is usually very short-lived, it coincides with some social or political crisis or in response to a movement
That's all activist groups. Activist groups tend to emerge when there's divisions in society, when there's anger among the masses. You could say the same thing about PSL. When PSL gets stronger, say the same thing about Workers' World Party. You could say the same thing about every radical group. People tend to join radical groups when there's an upsurge, when there's a movement, and when everyone's happy. And in normal times, people don't join groups. This is a complete non sequitur, right? Like, they have an upsurge when there's division in society. Well, no fucking shit, Brian. No shit, Sherlock. He got him. He got him.
Embryonic mass movement forming, like in the anti-nuclear movement, they became an
embryonic mass movement. Is that like the Stop Trump rallies that Brian organizes? Is that embryonic? Is Black Lives Matter rallies that are being promoted on CNN? Is that embryonic? Right. That's a real movement from below. Right. John Bolton and Nancy Pelosi wanting to drive out Trump for wanting peace with Russia. That's a mass movement of the people right there.
Different times reemerge as a factor. So I've known them literally now for 50 years as a tendency. And it's very noteworthy that when they become stronger again, which is usually very short-lived, it coincides with some social or political crisis or in response to a movement or an embryonic mass movement forming, like in the anti-nuclear movement, they became a very big force attacking the anti-nuclear movement. And
good, because the anti-nuclear movement brought down the USSR. Socialist countries build nuclear power plants. Iran is fighting for its right to have nuclear energy. And the connection, the way Bernie Sanders and others were able to go over there and cultivate the Gorbachev wing of the USSR's assets and bring down the USSR was very bad, right? Opposing the nuclear movement, a movement that says there's too many people in the world and we just need to drive down the population. Technology is bad. A movement funded by the big oil companies. That was not a wrong thing to do.
1979, when it really looked like the anti-nuclear movement against the use of nuclear energy, which then expanded into the nuclear freeze movement, was going to become something powerful. They were openly pro-FBI.
No, they were not. The FBI threw them in jail, you lying sack of shit.
It threw it the whole 70s. They were for the...
No, they were not. The FBI prosecuted them and threw them in jail, which they never did to your organization because your organization just tailed the liberals, right? This is unbelievable. They're pro-FBI. Generally, pro-FBI groups don't get their homes raided by the FBI. They don't get dragged into federal court and charged with spurious financial charges. How can you say this? You know, Ramsey Clark, who worked with his organization, who I knew and I worked with at one point, Ramsey Clark even defended Lyndon LaRouche, right? So this is unbelievable. I mean, he's just a liar.
The FBI and the repression directed against progressive forces.
That's not the truth. They were not pro-FBI. The FBI threw them in jail. Meanwhile, you're pro-FBI because of the fact that Donald Trump is opposing the FBI. They had a massive lawsuit against the FBI. They sued the FBI. I mean, how can he just lie like this? They're pro-FBI. You're literally supporting the FBI rigged the elections against Trump. Did you sleep through that, Brian, where the FBI went to Facebook and Twitter and told them to suppress the Hunter Biden laptop story to make sure that Trump didn't win, and your people are out in the streets marching to remove Trump? Like, is your head on backwards, you fucking liar?
So I think they're very suspicious in my mind. I think they're a tool. I think that because they are a cult and they have a cult following.
What does that mean? They have a cult following, right? They're a cult. I mean, it's like so the reason LaRouche is bad is we should all watch Netflix, right? Do they have a cult of personality like Fidel Castro and Stalin and Mao and Deng Xiaoping? You know, I mean, that's literally a term that comes from Khrushchev, right? Cult of personality was popularized by Khrushchev's secret speech. So watch a Netflix documentary to learn how bad Lyndon LaRouche is, right? I mean, this is just bottom scraping. I mean, this is unbelievable. They're a cult. They're a cult. So anyone that gets called a cult by mainstream media must be bad, right?
They're like an easy cadre that can be sort of moved into action or swept into action.
Yeah, right. Well, the PSL members are totally free thinking. All those college kids that you recruit for 1 or 2 years who then realize you have no plan to actually spread socialism among the masses, that you just run a protest hustle fundraising scam. You basically stage rallies and then go around the world with your hand out begging for money. You have absolutely no plan to win over the masses of people to socialism. I mean, all those 20-year-olds who join your group, they're all free thinkers, huh? Right? They're all free thinkers, right? All the 20-year-olds that join PSL, those are some brave, free-thinking people. I ought to put some videos on and show you how smart and free-thinking the PSL members are. Give me a break, right? But
and I really think it's extremely important for the left and progressive forces not to be duped and not to collaborate in any way with the LaRouche forces. From time to time, they take a position that will seem anti-imperialist. They were opposing the U.S. invasion of Panama, for instance, in 1989. They made connections with Noriega. They became like friends of Noriega. So they kind of find their way. They sort of infiltrate into different areas of where there's political crisis, but people should really beware of them.
Yeah, I really hope people take that to heart because it is a bit disturbing to see like the level of. And it's mostly just online, but also like especially when it comes with like a cult, because it actually ruins people's lives.
Yeah, Jose's ruining people's lives, folks. Name one person who Jose has ever ruined their lives, right? And to think that that man is the leader of any organization, to do what he just did on there. He equated a young man of color with the Ku Klux Klan, right? Rania just accused Jose of ruining people's lives. He played the cult of personality, the Khrushchevist cult of personality card, right? I mean, that's Brian Becker. If you want to know who Brian Becker really is, Jose did a heroic anti-imperialist act, and Brian Becker was so upset that somebody said something he pretends to agree with, that he did this podcast defaming them, right? That is what PSL is. That is what the Party for Socialism and Liberation is. Just wanted to get that out of my system. That needed to be said. Anyhow, I don't see any more questions that have come in. So I think we'll probably end it here, unless anyone has any last minute questions. I will probably end this stream. But thanks you all for being here. We do great things. Join the Center for Political Innovation. It's time to intervene in the historical process. It's time to say, I am. It's time to stand up and oppose globalism, imperialism. Oh, someone sent a coffee. Rice said, good evening, Caleb. Will you be streaming the 80th anniversary victory parade occurring in Beijing at 9 a.m. Beijing time, which is about the same time, your time. That would be 9 p.m. though. It's 12-hour difference. The article by David Fox has now been published by the Great Southern Discussion Club. Have a good rest of the night. We are serious about changing direction in Australia. Well, the Great Southern Discussion Club is a tremendous group. That's David Fox, who gave a great talk at our convention, is totally with us, and I'll drop that in the chat. That's very good stuff. I would go check out the Great Southern Discussion Club, gsdc.znn.au. Very, very good stuff. Very, very good stuff. Well, thank you, Rice, for raising that. And, we love the Great Discussion Club, and we will talk about the parade. I don't know if we're going to stream the parade on here. We might be able to do that. We will definitely show some clips of it. I'm open to the idea of streaming the parade. We might do it. We'll definitely talk about it. And go check out David Fox's article. And Penny is saying I need to show the video of the Burkina Faso orchestra. So I will do that. All right. I'm doing that. I'm doing it, Penny. I will show the Burkina Faso orchestra while we're still here. I'll do it. I will do it. And it starts at 3:53, she says, right? Or no, that's where it ends. Okay, so I will just show the Burkina Faso orchestra. I'll do that. The first 4 minutes of the video you sent. So we'll put that on, right? Burkina Faso is great, right? Right? Or is it a cult? Is it a cult of personality, right? This is why the Khrushchevism, the Khrushchevism book is so important, right? We have to just be prepared for this, right? That if you're a serious organization, if you're not just a liberal protest club, like PSL, if you're actually a serious organization, they're going to call you a cult, right? They called the Bolsheviks a cult, in case you didn't notice. They called the Bolsheviks a cult. They were not like other communist groups. They were like a monastic political order or a cult. They didn't practice open democratic, debate. They had people give the whole of their lives, right?